here at CIES in Vancouver, where we're with Leonora MacEwen from UNESCO, and Leonora and I and Jeffrey Coop just had a very interesting session on multi-risk and education analysis this morning. And Leonora's passion really comes through, and so I wanted to pull her aside and have her talk to us more about some of the issues that came up. So first, I'd like to ask you, what excites you so much about doing this work?
The exciting thing for me is really seeing the two worlds converge. So the world of development partners and development actors in education and humanitarian actors in education. That, but also the world of educationalists more generally and disaster and conflict risk management actors coming together. And IIEP's crisis-sensitive planning work has really tried to bring these two worlds together. And I'm really pleased to see that we've moved past kind of the advocacy phase where we were, really trying to bring people together to a point where we have synergies created and people are really working together. Ministries of education are working on these issues and are owning it, and I think that's something that we can all be proud of and can look forward, to continued implementation. Yeah. Okay.
So tell me about your top 3 lessons of doing this work, either at the policy level, at the global level, or down in the countries at the field level in terms of doing these assessments or these analyses, also with a range of partners.
I would say that there are 3 kind of key lessons learned. The first one would be around government ownership and the importance of having a government-led, country-led, government-owned process. The second one is more around the complementarity of approaches to the multi-risk analysis and planning, crisis-sensitive planning. And the third kind of lesson would be around ensuring that the approach is holistic and addresses both conflict and disaster risk. So in terms of being holistic in the approach, I think addressing conflict and disaster risks is really, really important in order to paint the whole picture, in order to give a realistic and relevant picture of what is going on and the effects that conflict and disaster have on the education sector. Oftentimes, as we all know, conflict and disaster risks might be linked. A natural disaster may cause conflict and create tensions over already scarce resources, just like conflict may lead to things such as epidemics or large amounts of displaced population. So it's really, really important to address all of those risks and not just keep it focused on only conflict or on disaster. Addressing all of them collectively really gives a more realistic picture of the situation.
So then tell me about how does UNESCO staff do this on the ground? How do they work with national partners to do this work on the ground? What support do they need?
In terms of support, I would say if we ultimately, at the end of the day, want this to be a country-led and country-owned process, there's a need for capacity development at 3 levels: the individual level, the organizational level, and the institutional level. And at an individual level, there's a need to have skills that are related to risk reduction and to better understanding the effects of conflict and disaster risks on education system, and having a shared knowledge across individuals within ministries of education, but also for development actors. I would say there's a need for development actors to understand that their programming can negatively affect conflict, if it's not crisis sensitive and if it's not conflict sensitive. So that's more at an individual level. I would say also at the organizational level, there's a need to have a specific unit or team or body within the Ministry of Education that is tasked with addressing these issues, but it is also accountable for ensuring that they're followed up upon and implemented once the programming is done and once the plan is finished. And finally, at the institutional level, there's a need to have the senior policymakers and decision makers that are aware of the risks and what the education system can put in place and can do in order to mitigate those risks.
Good.